I certainly would. First of all, I'd like to thank Mrs. Altman for putting this together. I know she's done a lot of hard work, both in effort and in time, in putting this together. 4 weeks ago, Mr. Chairman, you mentioned that you were surprised at the depletion in the reserves and had talked about having a meeting. So that's why I asked for this report. And I think the report is pretty self-explanatory, so I don't have any questions and anything further to add to that, I don't believe.
Okay. And we've read through the report. And Ms. Altman, would you like to walk us through anything you can think of, or would you like just to field questions or with the report? I'll have a few questions, and I've asked you some, and I think some of those would be good to have on our public record. So.
Well, I'll start with the good news. The Water and Sewer Enterprise Fund reserves exceeded the minimum required by almost $1 million. But our general fund reserves are $495,000 below the minimum requirement. There are a myriad of things that impact reserve balances, and I'm sorry. It's easier to look at it when you look at a year-over-year comparison. So I've asked Randy to put it up on the screen. Three reasons that I identified for lower reserve balances are, first, the minimum requirement or the reserves to be maintained increased this year because of our refuse collection contract. That contract, our budget went up $1.8 million from last year, and we had expenses that also went up, but and you can't really see it on it. Scroll down to the yellow. If you look at the yellow, you'll see that our budget went up from $18.7 million last year to $20.5 million this year. So that made our minimum reserves go up as well. Another thing, when you look, and if you'll scroll to the top, the number in blue there, you can see a trend. Our beginning balances have lowered over the years, and that's because of some of the significant capital projects we've taken on that weren't budgeted. For example, the library renovation, the purchase of the street sweeper, some Wonderland capital outlays, the digital radio upgrades. There's a lot of things, but they've been gradually lowering our reserves over the last 4 years. And my final comment is we have been allowing unspent street improvement balances to carry over from year to year. And this lowers your reserve balance. And going forward, I think that we need to complete our street improvements in the same year they're budgeted. That way it won't impact the reserve balance the next year. And that's really all I have, if anyone has questions.
Yes, sir. Please.
Chris Miles and I have talked about this, and we're going to bid the streets out earlier this next year, so we don't run into the rainy season trying to put together a street program. And because this year it really bit us. Now in the past we've gotten away with it a few times, but that carryover, we don't want that carryover to get to where it's so burdensome that it's actually killing our reserves. So I think our best way to go about this is to go ahead and bid those out, and we talk March, April, and try to get a street project done in the summertime when the asphalt lays better anyway. So I just want to throw that in and make sure that y'all didn't know we are already making a move to try to stop carrying over money because it does hurt us on our funds.
Mr. Redmond, in that regard, because I live down there, do you have any estimation of the cost for repairing that sewer in front of Save-A-Lot or Super One? Because that would not have been in the budget, but it must have been expensive.
Yeah,
I don't know
I
what
actually
Chris
have a
does in-
sewer expert here that we can turn to, and they'll answer any question we have. Y'all come on up here and
I mean, because to me, that impacts our street budget, and there's no way to budget.
Are you talking about the Turtle Creek phase project?
I'm talking about the street work that you all had to do on Pinecrest in front of Super One that certainly
Oh.
was not budgeted, but I'll
Last
bet you
week.
cost more than a nickel.
That's a water break. It's not-
yeah, that was a water
Right.
break.
Right. But doesn't that come out of streets and,
That'll come out of R&M supplies, and we had to, what happened out there was, there's a 16-inch water main on the south side of Pinecrest that's feeding a 6-inch to Super One under 43. When we made repairs, we turned the water back on, only to find out it was leaking under 43. So we had to pull that pipe out from under 43, which 43 is 80 feet wide. And as we was pulling it, the casing started coming with us. Come to find out there was only 30 feet of casing under Highway 43, excuse me. So it wasn't an even case the whole way. So we had to get a contractor to assist us on that, so.
no, I'm not criticizing. The point I'm trying to make is that wasn't in the budget, but it had to be done.
Well, I mean, you have contractors, services in the budget, but the project was not necessarily budgeted, but we do have line items for contractors for the 2019 budget.
Yeah, we do have some repair budget available
Right, that's all it was.
that we plan on using every year,
Right.
correct? Yes.
Contractor services.
Okay, very good. Any further questions on that? Then I just wanted to point out, we did have our trash and waste collection revenue. It changed our budget substantially to the tune of about $500,000 extra in reserves. So, with that, now it looks like we have a $20 million budget. It's been covered by our taxpayers, but our reserves have to increase. And so, we haven't changed anything, not 32 years, but we've had that contract for about 8 to 10 years, the one we had currently. So we didn't really project that, but of course, we need to make sure we have this reserve balance in check. And I've asked Ms. Altman just to put together some ways that we're going to have that done. And we need to pull together and have a meeting, or if we can do it at a regular city commission meeting, but we want to make sure that we have our compliance with all of our ordinances there. We have any further questions on this or discussion? All right.